Welcome to Roleplay Chat. I'm Matt, and I'm a game master who can't stop talking about role-playing games. In today's episode of Roleplay Chat, we're going to be doing a little bit of introspection, retrospection on my experience attending PAX Unplugged in December of 2024. I've had a lot of time to think about my experience, to have all of the really good moments kind of float to the surface as core memories, and kind of giving me the opportunity to think about what went well, what went a little less well, and what I did to prepare myself for the event. So if you're somebody listening who is curious about what happens at these large tabletop role-playing game conventions, or even just large geek conventions, really, it's more of what PAX Unplugged is, this is the perfect episode for you. I also have an awesome indie showcase where I talk about Universe at Your Door, The Traveler, a game by Lola Johnson. We also get to hear from Lola about what inspired the game and all of that. So it's going to be an awesome episode. I do have a bit of housekeeping to make, though. I'm sure for longtime listeners of the podcast, you maybe realized that this episode of the show is coming out a little bit later than what my usual cadence is for Roleplay Chat. Normally, with Roleplay Chat, I strive to have a bi-weekly release, so one episode coming out every 2 weeks. But I unfortunately failed to do that this time around. Life in my house, in my family, has gotten a little bit complicated. I won't get too much into it, but while everybody is healthy and happy, we've had some medical complications in the family that have kind of eaten up a lot of my bandwidth when I'm not working. So I've had a little bit less time to spend on the kind of post-production of Roleplay Chat. All this to say is that what I'm going to be doing for the next little while, probably the next few months as we adjust to this new normal, I'm going to be releasing episodes of the show once a month. I know that's not really a very frequent cadence, and to be honest, I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to kind of up the cadence and kind of get back to that once every 2 weeks. But for now, I don't want to burn myself out and I don't want to tire myself out on Roleplay Chat. So I think the best thing that I can do for me is make the show come out at a cadence that I can manage, and that is one episode per month. Now, of course, there might be, easier weeks, and maybe that'll mean that I'll manage to pump out 2 episodes in a month. So I'm not precluding myself from doing that. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling now. All I want to say is, on average, you can expect to see 1 episode of Roleplay Chat per month, probably for the next few months. And then as things kind of adjust, I'll let you know how I'm doing and whether or not I can bring us back to that once every 2 weeks schedule. So anyhow, without further ado, let's dive right into today's episode where we're talking about my experience at PAX Unplugged. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Roleplay Chat. I'm Matt, a game master who can't stop talking about role-playing games, and today we're going to be talking about something that happened a little while ago now, probably about half a year ago. I went to PAX Unplugged with a good friend of mine, and he's joining me today, so please welcome Alex, a friend of the show, a friend of the podcast, and a friend in real life. He's a game master, a creator, and creative of all stripes. Alex, welcome back to Roleplay Chat.
Hey, thanks. I'm really happy to be on the show today, and we're going to be talking about some cool stuff. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. PAX is, I think, my favorite tabletop convention that I've been to. My list is not that long, to be fair, but it is a really good time, and it's been now what, 6 months? When did we go? December?
December, beginning of December. So I think we went the 5th and the 6th of December, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, so one, two,
The
three,
six,
about
4 months,
about
four and
four
a half months.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it really gave us the opportunity to kind of think about what happened, let it sink in, and really form core memories of that event. So I'm hoping that today we can talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and let people listening kind of get a sense of what the experience was. So if they've never been, or maybe they only got to go for a short period of time, this can help set and prime their expectations.
Yeah,
And then
because there's
after,
so much, sorry, there's so much things going on there, and we have a lot to talk. We kind of touched everything as we went for the full duration, the full weekend, and so I think we're gonna touch on a bit of everything, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's the hope. And then after the indie showcase, we're gonna jump into kind of some advice. So some more actionable stuff that people listening might be able to kind of take into account if they're, not sure or unsure of what to expect and how to prepare for such a big convention. But before we
Awesome.
get started, Alex, I have a warm-up question for us to kind of get the
Ooh,
blood going. I've got a tabletop RPG would you rather question for you, so that we can
awesome! I
kind of
love these. I've
answer.
been following you on YouTube. I've been a big fan of the shorts lately, so this is awesome. I'm really excited about this one. Let's do it.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad. So it's gonna be tabletop RPG convention like related. So the setup is as follows: you're going to a 3 day event. Let's say it's PAX Unplugged. And during that 3 day event, you're going to sign yourself up for 3 sessions of role playing games. Would you rather they be the same group and game every time with a kind of a climax at the end of the third session? Or would you rather experience 3 separate tables with separate systems, different game masters, and different players? Which would you pick and why?
That's pretty interesting. I feel like the first option is pretty cool because you could, meet interesting people, get a chance to actually get to know them during 3 different sessions, and then actually have something substantial happen because, everyone knows that one shots sometimes they could be really cool, but then sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so that would be pretty cool. I'd say it would depend on the people that were there. So I guess I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'd go at the first game and then see if I want to stay with those people. And then I'd go, I'd try the other one. But if I really had to choose, I think I'd pick the second option, the 3 different systems, just because I'm such a curious guy and I really like trying, different things, trying new things out. You get to meet more people. Um, I'm all about the discovery and the curiosity, so I'm gonna go with the second one.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you for the same reasons that you said. And also, there's a little bit less of a commitment, I think, right? When you're playing 3 days in a row, like you said, if something just feels off, or maybe you don't like the system, maybe one of you and another player kind of just rub each other the wrong way, not because you're being mean to each other, but it's just not quite as pleasant. You're not locked into that for 3 days. And I
Or if you
think,
get a game master that rejects your ideas continuously, like that's happened before
yeah,
at a game
yeah,
con.
yeah, exactly. Um, I think too, and maybe this is a hot take, and people will get mad at me about this on the internet, but I feel like no matter what, playing a game in a convention is never going to be quite as good as if you were playing in a more intimate space, like at home or in like a club that you're used to going. It's never going to quite measure up to being the same experience. So for that reason, that like 3 consecutive games, I would just rather do that in a more quiet environment where there's more kind of quote unquote control that we have over the table and the people playing and stuff like that. So I think that for that reason, I like the small bite-sized component, um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Well, when we went to PAX, it makes sense, but I guess I have a counterexample because when we were at PAX, we met up with I forgot what's the system called? Shift, I think it was
Yeah,
Shift.
yeah,
We
we
played
played.
Shift, and I had such a blast. I think we were there for at least 3 hours, and like we were laughing the whole time. It was such a great game, and what I think is pretty cool about PAX is that they have the main convention area where there's all the vendors and everything. That's super loud, super crowdy, super busy, and there are some role playing games there. I think mostly D&D. But then there's all the indie rooms where you're in a separate room on a separate level. And that was really fun to be in one of those rooms because it was calmer and you kind of did have that cozier aspect. You're still in a large room with maybe 50 or 60 other people,
Hmm.
but you had that cozy aspect to it, and I had a lot of fun in that game.
Yeah, you're right. That is a very good counterexample. Jordan over at Hit Point Press ran a mean game of Shift. Like that was an absolutely fantastic game. One of the best one shots I think I've ever played in, like point blank of
Yeah,
any
I
system.
I mean,
Um,
you ran some really good one shots that I played
I
with
appreciate
over the
that.
years, and those were really solid. But the one Jordan ran was incredible, and I think what makes the one shots most memorable is at the basic quality of the DM. This guy was listening to us, all the hints, we were saying, and so it just goes to show that I guess goes to solidify my choice of your would you rather. The second one, if you see more people, you'll find these gems
Mm, true.
of people, and then you'll get to appreciate it. And I guess that is one of the core memories I have of PAX would be that game of Shift we played.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that this might be a good time for us to segue into kind of the things that really stood out to us during PAX. Um, I think it goes without saying that that game of Shift was one of the pillars of my, fun at PAX, definitely. What would you consider to be some of the other things that really, looking back without thinking too hard about it, stood out to you as being these core elements of the weekend that we were there?
Uh, for me, it would be the awe and amazement you have by just being in the market hall.
Mm,
Everywhere you turn, you see these stands and these content creators and these people that are selling product. They're trying to get your attention, and so they're putting on their best show. And every time you go from one booth to the next, or from you see one thing going on to the next, you just you're just amazed by the quality of the products. There's some booths that were selling minis, and just the way they set up all the displays. Um, I forgot the company that was running the minis, but they were basically 3D printed minis, and just the way that they set up all their displays, and then they were selling dice and all sorts of other stuff. You're just walking through this, and it's like you're a kid. And it's Christmas,
totally.
and you're just walking through the toy store, and it's such a great feeling. And also you have all these the big companies, the flagship companies like Wizards, and all the other names that are just putting huge colorful posters. Like I remember we got a few shots of us just in front of like Dungeons and Dragon posters and like Magic the Gathering posters that were super just beautiful. There were artworks, and they were just being installed everywhere. So just walking through this place and just appreciating visually what's going on was so much fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. The vendor hall is it's like almost impossible to describe. You did a very good job, actually. I don't think I have much to add. It's just so awe-inspiring, the sheer scale of what's going on and the diversity of stuff there, right? You've
Oh
got
yeah.
the big booths by these AAA companies, and then you've got these independent booths run by, two or three people tops selling their like handmade goods or the games that they've created kind of like on their own. And it's really this awesome experience to get to see them side by side and discover your next quote unquote your next favorite game, if that makes sense.
But not just that, all sorts of accessories too. There's this one, I snapped a couple pictures everywhere, and there's this one booth, and it was D&D inspired animal or dog toys. So the company, they were Polymorph, Paw, like PAW, Polymorph, and
Yeah.
they had all like you could buy like a flail or a lute, but it's like a dog chew toy, and it's like a big plush or something, and it was like, and instead of having these, I think they're like Kongs, they're called for the dogs. For that, you put like peanut butter or
Oh
like food
yeah,
in
the
them.
peanut butter
They
thing.
had them, but they're D20s, and it's like
That's
that's
awesome.
so cool. I don't have a dog, but that'd be cool if I did have one. Um, so like you're right when you're saying diversity. There's just so much out there, and there's some um, you know accompany things to accompany your game that I wouldn't even have thought that could be possible. Like these, there's one that has like a deck of cards. They look like playing cards, but when you go through them, they're actually like mini side quests. And I
Mm,
picked one up, and they're super fun to play with because sometimes you're like in a transition in your game, and I use them. I run D&D club at my high school. I'm a high school teacher, and I use these things all the time because then sometimes we're like transitioning to from one region to the next, and I kind of need a way to introduce a character or something. Now I have this resource that I didn't know exists, you know. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely awesome. Kind of on the other end of that spectrum, for me, something that felt very novel and interesting, and one of the standouts for me personally, one of these core memories, was when we went to the New Look board game section. So for people who might be unfamiliar, there was a whole hall, I think on the third or fourth floor of the
Yeah, it was on
convention,
the top floor.
and there was just a bunch of board games that quite literally don't exist yet outside of Europe or Asia or other markets. You know, the first time that people get to play some of
In
these
North
board games
America.
in North America, and they had you know translated rule books
Yeah,
that somebody had like typed out on a word processing software and printed and like
and like
laminated or
canned,
whatever.
yeah, like just like slapped on top of the rule book, and like you could, the game we played was Time Trouble, and I think it was a German game, and so you could kind of see through the paper, you could see the like the German writing in the
Exactly.
back.
And
That's pretty good.
it was so much fun, you know. We sat down, we played with two or three complete strangers that we had never met before and didn't see another time that entire convention. But it was a great time to sit down with fellow board gamers, people who were just as excited as we were to try something new. And I mean, that was a pretty fun game. I'd play it again. I'd probably
Yeah,
buy it if, you know, if there's a print run in North America. And I enjoyed getting that like firsthand experience with something that felt kind of exclusive, you know? It was cool.
yeah. Yeah, you felt special because you're like, wow, I'm the first, like, we waited in line for this event. You walk in, you're like, wow, I'm the first person to try this in North America because it's an exclusive event. So it was nice to have like this, I guess different conventions would have these different exclusive types of events at their convention, and this is one at PAX, and it was really nice too because when we were at the table, you get these like table placeholders or whatever, but it
Mm,
says looking for players, looking for help, so you could identify yourself to the public saying, hey, I need
yeah,
help with this game, or hey, come and join us, we want more players. And so that was kind of cool that that's how we met these I guess random players, and kind of just learn the game with them, and there's no expectations. You're
that's it.
just
Yeah.
there to have fun and do your best.
Yeah, it was cool. And then even afterwards, we kind of just scoped around and walked around and watched other people playing other games because there were dozens of these new games, right? For
Yeah.
people to explore, and some of them looked a little too complicated for me personally, but others seemed really neat. So anyway, I'm pretty sure this is a kind of thing that they do at all of the PAX events, not only at Unplugged. So it's definitely something to keep in mind for people listening if you attend a PAX, PAX East, PAX South, PAX whatever, PAX West. I don't know how many of these there are, but um,
And
yeah,
yeah, there were a
great
lot
time.
of tables there. I'm like looking at pictures right now of the event, and there had to be over 100 tables, like 100 different games, or maybe not a
Definitely.
hundred different games, because sometimes they had four tables for one game. But yeah, it was pretty insane. It was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, those are a couple of things that we did, but we were there for quite a long time. We were there for three three
Three
full days,
nights. Yeah,
three nights. Yeah.
yeah.
And we, you know, we really got to see a lot of things outside of those things, Alex. Were there other things that really stood out to you as being memorable events, memorable moments for you during the convention?
Yeah, well, there is a painting competition that I attended. I had
Mm,
brought these little grots from Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and so just my little Moon Clan Stabas because I play the Gloomspite Gits, and I brought like maybe 5 figurines, and you could submit for a painting competition. And essentially, you pre-paint your minis, you base them. There are different categories. You could have done a diorama. You could have just a big hero on a big base or a hero on a smaller base. I went with a unit, and and it was really cool because you get feedback by professionals and the people that grade. there are professional and known painters. These people have like YouTube channels with like thousands of viewers, and I forgot the names of who I spoke with, but it was super cool because then you're just like you're in there. You get prizes just for participating, which was awesome.
Mm.
And then you get feedback from the pros, and you get to see so many other cool paintings. I thought that was really really neat. And apparently, this event has been picking up a lot of steam over the years at PAX. With the first couple, maybe 5 years ago, the guy there was telling me that they only had one display case, but now they're at like 6 or 7 display cases of
Wow,
just
yeah.
people bringing in minis. So that
That's
was
awesome.
pretty fun. Yeah,
And that kind of shows that that hobby's really growing. I know that miniature painting, I think just like Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games and board games, there's like this wave, right, of people coming in and trying and taking their chances on these new hobbies. It's really nice to see. And I think like you said, having that judge and having somebody to give you feedback after when you receive your mini, it sounded like that was a really new thing. So at least for PAX to have kind of that feedback
yeah,
session. So that's really, really cool. I hope people listening take that as an opportunity to kind of grow their hobby. And you don't have to be a professional mini painter to enjoy and get something out of this, right? Like
exactly.
it's
So I'd read on online they said all levels accepted. I'm like, you know what? I've been painting for a couple of years. I'm not particularly advanced, and I didn't win anything, but it was nice to be felt included, because yeah, I'm not a professional painter, but I'm still going to submit something, and you're part of the action, and you get that excitement about it. So that was kind of in the background because I submitted the minis at the beginning of the event, so that was at the background of my head the whole time I was
yeah,
there. And you're kind of like, excited because you're waiting for the last day to see, like, I wasn't expecting anything much, but you're still excited to be in the competition, and seeing the results and seeing who else won because they had different categories. And then at the end, you could see who won every category.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, Another thing for me that is the main reason I go to these events really, it is seeing other people in the community. I think I can't understate how like natural the environment of PAX feels for meeting other people, whether they're creators, writers, designers, independent publishers in the tabletop RPG space. And I know, Alex, that this is kind of a world that you're not entirely part of. So I'd be curious to know your perspectives on this. But for me, as somebody who spends far too much time on online tweeting, or not tweeting anymore, but on Threads and Blue Sky and all of these places, it's so nice to get to see the people that I interact with on a weekly basis in person, face to face, give them a hug, give them a high five, talk to them about games in this environment that really brings everybody together. And I want to name drop a few folks. Jess the Human is somebody that I've looked up to in this space for a really long time, and getting to spend time with them was an absolute treasure. Seeing some of my old time friends in the space too, like David Tilstra, or even Jordan, who ran that game of Shift for us, was a lot of fun. Star Shinobi as well. And you know what? I'm blanking now, but I felt like getting the opportunity to see folks face to face and talk to them and just hang out was just it felt good. It filled my cup, it filled my heart with,
Yeah.
if that makes any kind of sense.
Well, it was nice for me too, because well, first of all, every night there was something going on. Either there was at the
Yeah.
hotel bars, at the was it the we were at the Marriott. I forgot which
Yeah,
hotel.
the
I think
Marriott, yeah.
The Marriott. But also, we went to bars and other places, and I met up with a couple of people that I hadn't heard about because I'm a father of two, and I don't have time to see all these things, but I've looked them up since, and appreciate their content. So I met the folks over at Pocket Bard,
Oh
and
yeah,
these
Alex and
guys are so
Chase, they're
cool.
so cool.
They're so cool, and I've been using Pocket Bard now at my in my D&D sessions. And then I met the guy from Run DMG. This guy's
Yeah.
like super awesome. He's just like such a chill guy, and we just talked for maybe 15, 20 minutes, over a beer or something. But it was super awesome, and he left us with like his card, and his card had like conventions and chimeras, TTRPG, um, role playing game, and it's like the rules are on the card he gave
Yeah,
you.
it's
It
like a
was really
mini
cool.
mini role playing game
Yeah,
on
it's
his
like a
business card.
exactly, and it's super cool. And then also met up with NPC Charles, which is really cool. He has a whole bunch of cool content, and just a great guy. And I got to walk away. Well, I bought some of his stuff too, so it was pretty cool. So no, it was really fun to like. And then you realize afterwards, after the
Mhm.
conventions, I didn't know them, and then I go look at their stuff online. I'm like, oh, these were big names.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And that's the beauty of PAX Unplugged is that everybody there is just a person, a person who loves
Mhm.
games just as much as anybody listening to this. And truly, they're super approachable, super kind, and it really brings everybody together and you just hang
Yeah,
out. You're just having a good time with these folks. And if you want to try to make connections to you know, pitch your next game. I suppose you could do that, but there's kind of this more natural feeling about PAX Unplugged where
yeah.
it's just a
People aren't
bunch
there to
of
pitch;
creators. No, they're not there to pitch.
they're
They're
there
there
to
to
have
just
fun.
hang out, have
Yeah,
fun, spend time with each other, play a game of Magic in the hotel lobby, like really, truly. Um,
that was cool.
that's it's like a vacation for everybody.
Mhm.
So 100%. And yeah, I can't believe I forgot Alex and Chase. Those two are so much fun. And actually, Pocket Bard is the composer of the introduction and outro of Roleplay Chat. So folks listening get to hear Alex and Chase's handiwork every episode. And if you haven't been convinced to download Pocket Bard yet, let this be your last call to go
And
download Pocket
and
Bard.
it's crazy the amount of content on there that's free. Like
Uh-huh.
when I downloaded it, I'm like, oh, you probably have to pay for this. And I'm like, holy crap, you have all these sounds. And yeah, if you want to get into some more specific stuff, you're gonna pay a bit, and it's natural you want to encourage them. But if you're looking for generic sounds and soundscapes, it's perfect. It's awesome.
Yeah, especially for like that fantasy space that most tabletop games are in anyway. Yeah, Pocket Bard's
Hmm.
your place for sure. Um, yeah, and then I guess that brings me to the last thing that really, and I'm sure, thinking back, there'll be other things that stood out, but the thing that stood out the most for me was actually something that I was a little bit hesitant about going in. And that was playing in a double-headed giant tournament with you, Alex.
So
Hands
much fun.
down, that was the most memorable moment of that whole weekend for me. Uh, we got stomped the first time
Oh, it
so
was
bad that we
terrible.
had to go back.
Yeah. Oh, but we got destroyed the first game. We felt like tourists in like downtown Paris or whatever, being just like completely run over by whatever. It was crazy. But then the second round though, we geared up and we did pretty well on the second one.
Absolutely. I think we think we learned our lesson. Maybe we got a couple of better pulls too. I think we got pretty
Yeah,
unlucky.
with the first time, like, oh, we were doing nothing. It was terrible. But yeah, that was fun. A lot more fun than I thought. And another just I guess side note, a maybe something to not a downside of the convention, but one thing I kind of regret about the convention
Mm.
is not bringing earplugs.
Oh, I
I have
see.
these
Yeah.
sound dampening ear, so they're not like shop earplugs or anything. They're just like the noise reducers. Um, and there's a lot of noise in a convention, so if you are going there, like by the end, I remembered because I remember when we were playing these the two-headed giants. They were later in the day, and I was kind of already tired of being in all the
Mhm.
noise, and so we were still sitting down and we're playing Magic, but there's still all this noise in the background. So having noise, like either noise canceling headphones or like I have like the loop earplugs, and they're just I don't want to do a plug for them because they're pretty expensive for what the product is, but they were great,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, so having those would have made everything perfect.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely a lot going on at the convention hall, and I think us talking about all the positives people listening deserve to hear some of the negatives too, right?
Yeah,
It's not going to be all roses the whole time. It is crowded, it is
yeah.
busy. Um,
There's lineups.
yeah,
You're waiting for food. You're waiting to go to the toilet. Well, this convention center was pretty good for the toilets. There were toilets everywhere. It was insane. Um, but yeah, there are. Yeah, I guess there are some downsides. Sometimes you want to talk to someone and you're kind of waiting in line, but you still get to talk to them. But
yeah.
you have to wait your turn, like everyone else. There's like thousands of people there, so definitely be prepared for that. But it was nice though. I'm saying this, but to every downside, there's an upside, I think, because at some point we were a little tired and we'd go and we'd find a corner outside of the hall, but inside the building. And then we could just like sit
Hmm.
down and relax and just kind of take a breather. And it was really nice because there's a lot of these, one more thing we did was a drop-in session, like a conference on, what was it again?
Oh,
Building
the panel,
terrain. Yeah, it was a
yeah,
panel on terrain building, and there was a lot of big names there too. I forgot their names, and my memory's not the best. But do you
yeah. Well,
remember?
there was one of the like, I guess the CEO of Dwarven Forge was
Yes,
there. I
yes, he was
forget
there.
his name, but he was really cool. NPC Charles was there. He's a really nice guy who makes
Yeah.
all kinds of really cool dioramas with with Dwarven Forge, actually, with material from
Hmm.
Dwarven Forge. Who else was there? There were
I,
two others that were more crafters that like used XPS foam to build
yeah.
stuff. Um, Magic Arcana. No, you know what? I'm gonna botch it, but
I'm trying to look. I'm on YouTube right now, and I'm trying to look at like my subscriptions, and they just want to throw videos at me, but I can't find it. I'm so sorry. Um.
the only name that's coming to my head right now
Oh,
is
here we
Black
go.
Magic Craft, which is not the it's not the same person, but Black Magic Jeremy at Black Magic Craft is super cool. He's from Winnipeg. He's a great guy and makes amazing terrain. But there was someone else there and
Tabletop witchcraft.
Witchcraft, Tabletop
People
Witchcraft.
thought, yeah,
That's
that's
it.
the one. That guy was awesome, and just
Yeah.
the things they were telling us, the tips, and you got to see a lot of their work too. They had a lot of pictures going
Hmm.
on. So these drop-in sessions, they're super cool. And then there's some other stuff that we didn't get to go to because they were just booked so quickly. But there were these workshops that you could sign up for that were really popular. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to go, but there's a lot going on at this convention. Going for the full 3 days was definitely, sometimes you sign up for something for the weekend pass and you're just like, okay, maybe a day
Hmm.
or two would have been good, but 3 days was just right for the amount of stuff
Definitely.
we had to do there.
There is so much going on at PAX. It's kind of unbelievable. And actually, I think that that's why we'll be giving you some advice because I think there might be some ways to think about this and get the most out of the weekend. So we're gonna do a quick little break. We're gonna listen to an indie showcase. We're gonna hear from a creator who's made an awesome game. There's gonna be a short review, and then we'll come right back to this conversation with Alex and I about PAX.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on Roleplay Chat. I am Lola, the designer, writer, and person that does various other wibbly bits behind Johnson O'Fair. Thanks for having me here to talk about Universe at Your Door, The Traveller. It's a game that is really close to my heart, and I'm really happy to be able to share it. Universe at Your Door, The Traveller is a solo journaling game with added group rules that invites you to step into the role of the traveller, to venture out into the universe beyond our solar system, weave a tale of life lived on exoplanets in research and connection, and explore the beautiful mundanity that keeps a person together when they're so far away from home for essentially a lifetime. And it encourages you to build the foundations of an extraordinary person or extraordinary people if you're playing as a crew through the memories that you carry into the future. So your memories from home and the joys, trials, the places that birthed you, and all of the things that make you you, that you then take into space, or at least make your characters your characters. My primary thoughts about University of the Traveler is that it's not just about encouraging you to travel in this way, but it's very much about envisioning a future in space by the people, for the people. Very much like, instead of saying, okay, space at the moment is for the purview of billionaires and military applications, which is what big company, like what government ventures and like pursuits of space has always been. And I would love to look at that, and what University Yodor does is looks at space from the perspective of, we're astronauts, just everyday people. Granted, everyone is a specialist, so they have their own research areas as to why they're heading out to space. It's less about space tourism, but more about learning in space, and being able to send the things that we learn and connect with and interact with home, so that people back on Earth have that same ability to connect with your research and your discoveries, or the things you explore and create as part of the game, in the same way that you, as that astronaut, do. I like interweaving various themes in a lot of my games, and in this one, the very grounded idea is about carrying hope for the future and remembering the past, and taking that in this wonderful little blend with you out into space as you create. And it's exploring the immediacy of grief and wonder at the same time, because the way that you travel and the way that you explore is set up as short distances, or short amount of times relatively, for how long you are in suspended animation between planets. However, those short time or distances are in factors of years, like of up to 20 years, which I think keeps that level of, oh, home is a lot more immediate, and the years are passing from home whilst we sleep, whilst we don't age. And I think that is it's a very important way to help us connect to what is being left behind, and what the very real idea is of the worlds that we are creating, both out there in space, and also the world that we have created for our characters who have left behind, and all the people that they have left behind. So it's that really beautiful balance of that wonder of out there and the fantasticalness of being able to create, for example, a planet that is created of gas and the various, I don't know, solid bodies on it might be marshmallow-like in texture, for example. The inspirations behind Universe at Your Door, well, the initial inspiration for it was the book To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers, which is honestly a fantastic novella that very much says that space is accessible for the people. And so it brings together a community of people that are building the possibility of space missions with mandates from the people to say, go explore and send this knowledge back. Just like which is something that I've incorporated within the game to say, go explore, research, interact, gather knowledge, send it home, and do no harm. Incorporating it into a game with this framework using the Sentinel system from Megan Cross of Siren Song Games was very much about just speaking hope into the future and asking people to imagine different worlds. And like I want you, everyone that's listening, to be able to imagine different worlds and places and have that opportunity to explore, and also grounded in the idea of what can we bring home? What can we see a future on our world for? Right? So, because University at Your Door as a game is set in a fictional but not so distant future. So 30 years into the future from where we are now, or at any point if it's being played. So just imagining a little bit further into the future and adding some fictional, fantastical elements, or thinking about our world as it is now and what it will look like in the future. So for me, it was very much inspired by, I want us to think of imaginative and wonderful and amazing places, and think of what they could be doing there, and think of how we can bring that here, or what we could do together here. I think that you should check out University Your Door the Traveler if you want to have fun in general, but also you want to do it by exploring the idea of different planets and doing world creation in a majestic and fascinating way, building worlds through little snippets and logs that are very much in the way that we remember stuff, like little vignettes of time and things that we've achieved and connected with. But also, if you wish to back it as part of the Kickstarter or back it at late pledges, to get a shiny physical copy with a very beautiful book and game in your hands. Yeah, I hope that you enjoy the idea and you've had a little bit of a taste through the playthrough. And thank you for inviting me.
Thanks so much, Lola, for those words of wisdom, and also for sharing your game with me to give it a try, to give it a play. And so now I'd like to quickly explain to my audience my experience playing Universe at Your Door, The Traveler. As Lola mentioned, this is a solo journaling game, and while there are rules to play it with others, I experienced it on my own individually. It was a really easy game to pick up and play. The rule book, some dice, and a deck of cards was all you needed to give it a go, and of course some paper. Some paper to kind of note down what's going on and journal your experience. I will say, though, like all solo journaling games, this game is going to encounter, I think, the same challenges as anybody trying any other journaling game. Is that you need to be inspired and feel inspired by the content in the moment to kind of have this moment of self-reflection and, creative writing. I think especially in this context, Universes at Your Door, The Traveler, really does call upon you to be creative with the worlds you're exploring, the fauna and flora you're finding, and if you're not feeling especially tapped in to your creative mind during a playthrough, you might find yourself struggling a little bit. I will say that the game does a fantastic job of giving you prompts and asking you the right questions to kind of jog that the creative juices of your mind. But I think this is kind of a criticism of all solo journaling games. You're gonna get what you can put into it, so you kind of have to time it right. Myself, I'm going through quite a bit in my personal life right now. It's a very busy time at work. It's a very busy time in the family. And so I think that maybe had me a little bit distracted when I was playing. So, really, my advice to people listening, if you're into solo games, if you're into sci fi, especially if you like the idea of getting to explore uncharted places and exploring uncharted feelings for your character, this is definitely a game for you. But remind yourself that you need to kind of be in the right headspace to kind of sit down with a nice cup of tea on a cozy, rainy Sunday afternoon and really just allow yourself to have this moment of self reflection. So, I'd love to encourage people listening to go check out Universe at Your Door, The Traveler by Lola Johnson. You can find it in the show notes. There'll be a link to where you can buy it. And if I'm not mistaken, Lola, you mentioned to me that you're going to be doing some crowdfunding to bring a physical version of the game out into the world. So I'd love to encourage folks listening to go and keep your eyes peeled for some kind of some kind of crowd. Oh my goodness. To keep your eyes peeled for any kind of crowdfunding efforts that Lola might be making. Thanks again, Lola, for sharing your game. And now let's get back to the discussion and the, more retrospection, I suppose, on the PAX Unplugged experience for 2024. And we're back. We're back, and we're going to now talk a little bit about advice. So, Alex, like we were saying, there's a lot going on at PAX Unplugged. There's a lot of fun stuff going on at PAX Unplugged, but there's also some small hurdles, I think, that people have to overcome. We already talked a little bit about crowds. We talked a little bit about just there being a lot of events and it being kind of hard to get into some of them. So maybe what we'll do, kind of like we usually do on Roleplay Chat, is I'm going to go over some advice that I found on the internet that kind of applies to people attending their first convention, or maybe not their first convention, but people going to a convention, what kind of things to look out for. Uh, for the most part, the advice isn't that bad, but I feel like it can be elaborated on a little bit more. So why don't we give our opinions and kind of react to this advice? And then after we're done, I have 6 quick ones. I'm sure we'll have our own thoughts about things that people can do as far as advice goes. Does that sound like a good
Awesome.
plan for you?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the first piece of advice comes from Level Up Dads. And Level Up Dads say, be sure to make a list of the things you want to do and learn the layout of where those things are. How do you feel about that advice, Alex?
I totally agree with that. Um, I did that going in,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not regret doing that. It was awesome. Um, Actually, you and we sat down, I think, or had
Yeah, we
a
had a
chat on
call or
Discord.
something.
We had a
Yeah.
call, yeah, and we talked. We took a good hour or two going through the schedule, going through all the stuff, and picking out our top three in order of what we want to do when. Um, Doing that in advance like that helped to minimize or to completely eliminate the feeling or the FOMO when you're there because you know what's
100%.
happening. So you know what's happening, you know where it's happening, and there's so much stuff going on that you're not you read through like kind of like everything and all the events, and you're able to say like, okay, I know all of this is going on, but it's not really interesting me right now because I or it's not really of interest for me, so I don't mind like skipping or walking past these things because I know what it's about and I know I want to do other stuff. So I totally
Yeah.
agree with that advice.
Yeah, I think having that plan ahead of time was the best thing we could have done
Yeah.
because like you said, there's so much going on. And it's great that there's so much going on because it allows everybody with each and every interest the opportunity to kind of get the most out of the convention, right? But if we didn't do that plan, being there, it would have felt very overwhelming to
Yeah,
try to understand what all those things were and
exactly.
maybe like poke your head in, spend a little bit of time. I think we would have wasted a lot of time kind
Yeah,
of
because
exploring.
there's so much information there, and you
Hmm.
don't want all the information. Uh, but when you don't know that you want it or not, and you're just like confronted with the choices while you're there, I feel like
Yeah,
that would have kind of made things a little overwhelming. So having it done beforehand, yeah, hands down, best
yeah,
decision.
definitely. And to add to that too, you can kind of like trust yourself, right? Like I
Yeah,
forgot all the stuff that was going on, but I could remember in the moment that I was like, no, 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 we thought about this, and this was the most interesting thing that was happening right now to us. So that's what we decided to do. Um, I do
exactly.
think though, as a quick caveat to people listening, you can over plan though. So make sure that when you make your plan, you know, you're realistic. You give yourself time to get food, you give
Yeah,
yourself time to
bathroom breaks.
go to the bathroom. You're not, you know, back to back to back to back to back have stuff planned out because you'll burn yourself out. And
And plan time to go to other places because these convention
mhm,
centers are huge. Like this one was spanning over, I think, four city
yeah,
blocks. And so
massive.
so when you had one thing planned at one end of the convention, then you have to walk to the other end, and then you get distracted by all these cool things in between that you want to try or see, like that Pokemon. What was it? The knitted
Oh yeah.
the Ekans. Yeah, what's that game called
It,
again?
it was like ring toss, but
Yeah, it was Ring Talk
with
with
Ekans.
Ekans and Niglets or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Dugtros or
yeah.
whatever.
That was fun.
It's like the mini game from Pokemon Snap or from not
Stadium,
Snap.
Pokemon
Yeah, it's
Stadium.
Pokemon Stadium. Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. But you know, these things are there, and there's so much more than what's announced when you get there. Like they just take this place and pack
That's it.
everything they can in every nook and cranny. So you
Yeah.
see stuff on the plan beforehand, but then there's so much more there. So having like at least an hour or even an hour and a half, 2 hours between your planned events gives you time to see all these things, get food, go to the bathroom, take a breather in a corner and just like kind of like or go outside to just take some fresh air for a
Yeah.
couple minutes. Yeah, that's a must.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. The next piece of advice comes from Weird Louise. WeirdLouise.com. She has like an article, and one of the pieces of advice that Weird Louise mentioned was to be prepared to wait. There are lines for things like badges, panels, shows, etc. And she just says there's going to be a lot of waiting time. How do you feel about that in respects to PAX Unplugged, Alex?
I'm I'm not too sure because everything that we planned to go at, we kind of registered in advance, like the Magic
Hmm.
tournaments. So we didn't really wait that much. I mean, you're there, you're expecting to start maybe at like 4:30, and then for some logistical reason you start at 4:50 or 4:45, and you're not even waiting that long. Um, and I remember there's this one booth they were giving out prizes. You'd roll these giant foam D20s into
Oh
a giant
yeah.
dice tower, and I don't know, we were there and you're waiting, but while you're waiting, you're just looking at everything around you and just looping back to what we said at the beginning of the show. There's just so many things to look and see that unless you're waiting in line to meet with like to get autographs or something with someone, then I guess yeah, you would be waiting a while, but we didn't really do any of that. So
Hmm.
I don't know,
Yeah.
that's not maybe in the list of advice I wouldn't put that one at the top.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like I'm not sure if it's because of PAX and the way that they run their event, but I genuinely felt like we were barely ever in a line.
Yeah.
Even when we went to go get our badges, granted we went the day before, we were early, but there was quite literally nobody there. We walked in, got our badges like instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think the longest time we ever had to wait was to go see that panel about building terrain.
Yeah.
We just kind of like waited around outside the room for maybe 15 minutes, but
Yeah.
even that kind of felt like a welcomed rest because, you know,
Yeah.
we got to sit down on the ground and take a little breather.
Exactly.
So, Yeah, I don't think there was that much waiting around happening truly, and even if there was,
Maybe for the
it
food
felt
stands. I
okay.
remember when we went to Market Hall, we did maybe a bit of waiting there when we were waiting maybe for like whatever food we were ordering at some
That's true.
places. But I don't know. It was yeah,
Yeah, it genuinely didn't feel like I was waiting any more than if I went to like a food court in a mall and had to buy food or
yeah, exactly.
a
Yeah, or
bathroom at
even
a.
sometimes less than that. Like I feel like sometimes
Mhm.
I'm waiting longer in line at Costco for the checkout than I was at PAX.
Definitely, definitely. Um, this does though kind of segue into the next piece of advice, and it was plan ahead to save money. This was also from weirdlouise.com, and I do agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I felt like it was expensive. It was an expensive weekend for what it was. The hotel that we went to was great.
Yeah,
It was great, but it cost
a lot of money.
a lot of money to be downtown, uh, within walking distance of the convention center. Which I mean, granted, I think is the way to do this. You want
Oh
to
yeah,
be
for sure.
walking
I
distance.
would not do it any other way. And honestly, I
Yeah.
remember doing a spreadsheet afterwards just to kind of track how much money I spent because I kind of lost count at one point. And I think with the hotel and all, I'm pushing 2 grand for this weekend.
Ooh.
But I bought a lot of merch, and the hotel was super expensive too.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
hotel ended up being like, and I'm talking 2 grand Canadian, so that's like maybe 1,300-1,400 bucks US. Um, and so yeah, yeah, a lot of
It's a
money.
lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, if I had to do it again, I would probably sign myself up. I know the convention has usually they get preferred rates with a handful of the hotels that are really within close proximity, and I would probably sign myself up to their mailing list to say like, okay, the hotel is open for the preferred rates and like instantly jump on those preferred rates. Same
Mhm.
thing goes with like food, the food was I remember buying like mini calzones or something, and they
Yeah, and it was
cost
like
like $20 or
12,
something
yeah, 20
stupid.
bucks for two or something like that. You're just like, whoa, I could go to a buffet for less than this and have like
Yeah,
20 times the food. Um,
yeah, exactly. So preparing some of that stuff ahead of time
Yeah, and it was nice because
might have
we
been.
we stopped at a grocery store and we got a whole bunch of stuff for breakfast. You brought a toaster to the hotel room, which was
Yeah.
super clutch. That came in really handy. And Yeah, so we had the toaster. We got had the bagels and the cream cheese every morning, and we had some fruit and stuff. So being prepared like that and having food on us, I think that saved us
Mhm.
a lot of money. Hey, we always had the backpacks on us. Always had like a couple apples in there, some bananas, some protein bars,
Yeah.
and other snacks. Yeah, preparing like that in advance was a must.
Yeah, and having that extra boost of sugar too. What it felt you don't realize, but you're on your feet all day, you're walking around,
Hmm.
you're so distracted by everything that's going on. Having an apple in the middle of,
Yeah,
in between games or whatever, it
or
it,
just in
it
the middle
definitely
of the
came in
floor
handy.
because like you said, you're walking around so much you don't even feel it hit you. You're just like submerged by this like you're overstimulated, and then you get
Mhm.
your own stimuli from like being hungry, and you're just like you. It's nice to have food on you because when it hits you, you're just like, oh crap, it's too late. All right,
That's
I'm
it.
gonna have an apple.
That's it. Definitely. Um, the next piece of advice, I think we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe we'll revisit it quickly. Comes from Off the Beaten Home Life. Their website they have an article there too, and they say that prepare yourself for crowds. There will be crowds, there will be noise. And I think, your advice of bringing some kind of noise suppression device definitely applies in this context. Um, are there other things that kind of come to mind for you, Alex? Do you agree with this
Yeah,
advice, and what kind of additional things do you think you'd have to add, if any?
but just knowing in advance that you're going to be confronted to big crowds
Hmm.
helps with being there and confronting them when you're there. You're prepared. So be prepared. There will be, excuse my language, shit ton of people there, and you will like be rubbing shoulders to shoulders with a stranger at one point or another when you're going to squeeze by a booth, or when you're going to be looking at something and someone else is going to want to come and see something next to you.
Hmm.
And so just be prepared for it mentally. And I mean, I'm not too worried about that. I'm a big guy, 6'2", 260 pounds, so I'm not too worried about anything happening at that end. So I can't say I'm the best to prepare, but yeah, there will be a lot of people. I'm kind of like get overstimulated by the noise, so that's one thing
Hmm.
I kind of regret not having those headphones. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it definitely is something to kind of keep in mind. I think the beauty of it, though, and we mentioned it earlier too, is that there's enough opportunity for you to seek fun in places that aren't as overwhelming. Yes, there's the large market hall, and I think everybody should try to experience that. But that's where the majority of the crowds were, in my opinion. Outside of that, you can go try new games. There's these small rooms, kind of like where we played Shift. Same
yeah,
thing with, the board games, and there's all of these um, other creators testing their games, getting feedback for their games, or smaller publication companies running systems that you might have wanted to try, and those take place in like boardroom style
yeah, exactly.
spaces.
And these are like rooms that could accommodate from some of them are 100 people, some of them are like 50. I think there are some
Hmm.
even smaller rooms with like 25, 30 capacity maybe. And these people were running games in there, so you knew you had something intimate and somewhere where you weren't overwhelmed by the noise, because these convention centers are really well built. When you're in these rooms, you don't hear
Hmm.
a thing. And like there's hundreds of thousands of people above you, or maybe tens of thousands. Um, but
Yeah,
you don't hear a thing. So there was a good escape, I find. So if you are noise averse or crowd averse, there is room for you there, and it's very welcoming. And there's a lot of resources, and there's so many people around there to help you too. There's
yeah.
I forgot what they were called, but they had like these purple shirts, and it said
The
like uh,
enforcers, the PAX
yeah,
enforcers.
enforcers, and you could just stop, and they were super friendly people, and you just say, hey, I need this. So if you need somewhere quiet, I'm sure the enforcers could help you out very easily to be like, hey, I just need to quiet down, and do you have a place to suggest? So these people are super, open, and they're there for you. So it was nice to, when you needed help, to be able to have access to enforcers was really nice.
Yeah, definitely. They're extraordinarily organized too. For them to make that kind of space feel not as crowded as it was, I think it really says a lot about how
Hmm.
organized the PAX, uh, or, event planners are, and it speaks to the convention hall as well. All right, I've got one other piece of advice here, and this one says, "Buy it before it's gone," and this comes from the Geek Dads. And I think this makes reference to like some of these independent games or products that the creators are selling in the vendor hall. I'm kind of torn. I don't know if I agree with it or not. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
your opinion first, Alex.
I'd shift the opinion. I mean that's a pressure sales. I don't do well with pressure
Yeah,
sales. They'll
yeah,
try to
yeah.
pressure sale me. But I'd say buy it because you won't be coming back. There's
Mm,
so much stuff to see there that if you see something that you want, and that's probably why I spent so much money there that time. I saw something and I'm like, you know what? This place is so big. There's so much to see. I'm not going to be walking past this place tomorrow or the day
mhm.
after. I'm going to be walking past another place because there's thousands of vendors. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
literally at least a few thousand vendors there. And so I kind of like looked at the map and kind of decided on a grid. So I said, okay, I'll do this day one, day two, I'll go here, day three, I'll go there. And I mean, the vendors there, like I remember I bought Mycelium, the board game, and they had like thousands or hundreds, like close to 1,000 copies there. So, like, if you really do change your mind, it's probably going to be there the next day.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're looking at smaller booths where they're selling like very unique handmade stuff, for like, there's a lot of like, handmade dice and like gemstone dice, like of a specific color, and they probably only have one because they're selling it for 80 or $90 for the set. Um, if you fall in love with someone, not with someone, with something like that, then yeah, do buy it probably, because it might not be there the next day, and then you might regret not getting it. Then again, it's very a very consumerist way of thinking.
Mhm.
But I'd say, yeah, if you think something is cool and niche, get it, because there's so much to do that you're not going to be walking past there the next day.
Yeah, that's really good advice, actually. I remember going through that market hall. I could have sworn I went through the same aisles over and over again, and every time I'd find a new store that I didn't realize it was there. Like a new booth, rather, that I was
Yeah,
like, wait, that was there? I didn't know that was there.
yeah,
I swear I walked past this one, like this
yeah.
area before, and it materialized somehow. So definitely, if you see something you really like, get it because you're not going to go back. Get it because you might not find the booth
You might
again.
not find the place. You're just like, oh, what was that thing called? It was beside the giant Pikachu. No, it was beside, like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, so if you find something, I mean, and plan ahead too. Maybe we could go back to another piece of advice about planning. Was it something about money? Um,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
give yourself a budget. Had budget. I blew way past my budget, but I had still budgeted some money, and said, okay, you know what? I know I'm going to spend money there, and so I said, okay, let's put aside. I think I put aside 400. Ended up spending like 700 or something like that. Canadian dollars again, so it's less for the American folks listening. But um, yeah, it was pretty crazy. So budget
yeah.
ahead of time. I saved up money going to PAX, so I didn't exit PAX with a debt. I just spent the money I saved going there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, to this point, there are a lot of unique things that you're gonna see. There's board games or role-playing games that have like a limited print run or they're independently created, so they're not, if you didn't back the Kickstarter, seeing these booths and buying them there might feel like the only opportunity you have to buy them,
Yeah,
but
and
it
in some
it, it
cases,
isn't,
no,
I don't
yeah.
think.
Oh, well, yes. I guess yes and no. I was gonna say the opposite. Like, I bought some stuff from Tom Kartos.
Oh,
Tom
cool.
Kartos. I'd
Yeah.
been following him and using some of his free content online, but then I bought some of his physical stuff. Like there's these giant books that are about 2 feet by 1 feet, and when you open them up, it's like a 2 by 2, a 2 feet by 2 feet big map with grid and
Yeah,
images and
yeah, yeah.
everything. And it was super fun buying them. And he was actually selling his leftovers from the Kickstarter campaign. So
Oh, is that what that was? Cool.
exactly. So once they were gone, they were gone, and he wasn't going to do another print run unless
Okay,
there was
so
enough
yeah, then
demand. Yeah. So,
yeah,
anyways,
so maybe you're right then. Maybe there is kind of a limited supply there. But one thing that I will add is that a lot of this content, again, buy it because you want it, but
yeah.
also buy it because it's an opportunity to support small independent creators. If you're gonna go
Mhm.
to PAX or any similar convention, yes, there's gonna be the big flashy booths run
Yeah.
by
You don't
Wizards
go
of the
there to buy a
Coast.
player's handbook.
That's exactly it. Like you're gonna be able to find that somewhere else. But you're not going to be able to find the Tom Kartos map pack volume 2
Or
because
the deck of cards with the mini adventures that I got,
exactly,
because this is this
exactly.
one mom and pop shop, in, I don't know, Denver, Colorado, and they're there at the convention, so you're seeing them, but like I'm nowhere near Denver, or like Victoria in British Columbia, or wherever they're
Hmm.
from, and you won't ever see them again. So if you find novel stuff, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, worth getting for sure. So we're getting close to the end of the show, Alex, but I'm sure that, deep down you might have other things that you think would be worth imparting as advice to people listening. I know for me, one piece of advice that I have for people listening is to also kind of pack yourself a survival bag. We talked a little bit about it with the apples and we're gonna be on your feet all day. But I think it's super important for you to, it's gonna sound like I'm your mom, guys listening. I'm sorry. But bring a water bottle, bring a deodorant stick if you think you're gonna need
Yeah,
it. Bring like wear comfortable shoes, comfortable
sure.
clothes, all that kind of stuff. Like to me, that's a piece of advice that I think you ought to hear because it's really hard to overstate how much is going on, and you're spending, sometimes 12 plus hours in this convention hall per
Hmm.
day. So you want to make sure you come equipped with the things that you need to kind of keep the lights on for your body, like be kind
Yeah.
to your body.
So that you
Um,
could enjoy this as much as you
exactly.
humanly can. Because if you're uncomfortable and you have something that's bothering you, I remember we had like like Gaviscon or whatever what was it for
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
stomach
yeah.
burns, and like I had brought everything. That was pretty cool. That was a good idea because you're there for so long that and you want to be there for so long because it's like a one weekend kind of like super go go go.
Yeah, you want to make the
It's
most of
pretty
it,
fun, yeah.
um, but not at the expense of your health. So yeah, definitely make sure you kind of have something like that. I'm not sure if you had any other kind of nuggets of wisdom that you wanted to share.
Well, I think I'm just going to reiterate a point that we went on. The biggest point I think that was that helped me the most was planning ahead of time.
Hmm.
Just going through all the events and all the guests, just reading ahead of time, planning budget ahead of time, just all this pre-prep work you do so that once you're there, you're enjoying the con at its fullest. That was for sure. If I had any advice that I could take away or that I would want to give anyone advice is prepare, ahead of time, plan ahead of time, and we touched on over planning and stuff like that, but yeah, do plan ahead of time. Um, I think that was the thing we did that made me enjoy the con the most.
Yeah, that's yeah, super solid advice to reiterate. One last thing for anybody listening who might be a content creator, writer, podcaster, Twitch streamer, or whatever. If you're going to a con like this, I want to encourage you to do two things. Don't be afraid. The first thing is don't be afraid to reach out to some of your internet friends before going to the con to ask them if they're going to be there, to ask them if they want to meet up. And don't be pushy about it, but don't be afraid to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm going to be there. I'd love to see you." And the reason I say that is because odds are they want to see you too. But maybe their life is too busy, maybe there's just too much going on, and they just don't think of it. But it's so nice to be contacted by somebody that you interact with positively online and to be told like, "Hey, I'd love to try to come and say hi." It feels really good, and I know I did that a lot to folks. I hope I didn't pester anybody. Um, and I feel like it was thanks to that I got the opportunity to actually meet up with some of these folks because there's so much going on that if you don't take the active energy to try to kind of connect with folks, it's not going to happen all on its own. Like it's not just going to happen by happenstance. It's too big of a convention hall. There's
Yeah.
too much going on. Um, so that's my first little thing. And then the second thing is try to find a Discord, like a small Discord community of other creators going to the convention. Because that for me, and shout out to Logomancy, James over at Logomancy, who created his own little server. That was like the hub for me as far as finding things to do during like lights out once the convention was done, trying to find where people were headed that night to just kind of hang out. So if you don't know the first place to start, just go to socials, post some stuff saying like, "Hey, anyone going to this convention? Anybody have a Discord server that they're aware of that I can be a part of?" And again, don't pester folks. Be kind, be nice about it, and I'm sure it'll all kind of work itself out. So
Awesome.
yeah, that I think kind of brings us to the end of today's episode about PAX Unplugged, this kind of big retrospective. Thank you, Alex, for one for coming to PAX with me, and for two for you doing this conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a lot of fun. This is a good trip down a little memory lane there of the event, and thanks for having me on the show. And it was super fun going to PAX, and I look forward to the next PAX that hopefully hopefully you'll want me there again. I look forward to going
Absolutely,
again with you.
absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks, Alex, and thanks everybody listening. If you had questions and you wanted to reach out to me about my experience at PAX Unplugged, or just kind of the things that I did to get ready, feel free to do so. You can contact me on any of the social media places, Blue Sky, Threads, for instance, at roll_play_chat. You can also follow me on YouTube, where I'm making some medium strides, doing some short form content there, doing the D&D Would You Rathers, which I'm having a lot of fun doing. So again, that's roll_play_chat. And if you don't want to be subject to a character limit, you can always email me at contactroleplaychat@gmail.com. Other than that, I hope everybody listening has a good time, and let's call it a chat. Bye, everyone. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of today's episode, friends. If you made it all the way here, you are one of the true MVPs of the Roleplay Chat audience. The other MVPs of the Roleplay Chat audience are the Patreon subscribers who are supporting me through their subscription on Patreon. I'd like to thank Domil's Wondrous Works and Jason over at Shadowmane. Thanks to the two of you for supporting me. Your support allows me to continue to make this show. If you wanted to join them, you're welcome to do so by going onto Patreon and looking for Roleplay Chat. There's also a link down in the show notes. There you can subscribe to the show, where you can get access to the episodes as soon as they're done, as well as extended episodes depending on the tier that you subscribe to. You can also support the show without spending money. You can do that by reviewing the show, spreading the good word, and sharing the show with your friends. If you do that, it really helps to broaden the reach of Roleplay Chat. Recommendations, personal recommendations, and word of mouth really are one of the number one ways for the podcast to be discovered. Also, if you're looking to buy some new tabletop RPG stuff, like dice, miniatures, or new games and rules and supplements, the show notes have links to affiliate links. So if you were to buy things using those affiliate links, for instance, the indie showcase that was spotlighted in today's episode, you can purchase it there, sometimes at a discount too, depending on the link, and a small kickback comes back to me. So yeah, check all that stuff out. The show notes has a handful of links there, things like Hero Forge, Drive-Thru RPG, some awesome dice makers and things like of that nature. So go check it out, and yeah. Thanks again for making it all the way here, and one last thank you to Alex and Chase over at Pocket Bard for allowing me to use their music for the intro and outro of Roleplay Chat.